Hello and Happy New Year from the Cineskinny. This is the second part of our 2022 kind of retrospective episode. We just realised before we went on holiday that we forgot to record an intro. So this is me, Peter, doing that now. In a minute you'll hear from me, Lewis, Anahi and Jamie. If you like the pod, tell your pals, etc, etc. Here we are talking about some good things that happened in film last year. See ya, bye. So in the last episode, we talked about the 10 best films of the year. Very methodically calculated. Everyone wrote down their little list. Jamie put all the lists together, and then we came up with a thing that everyone could agree on. Now we're going to talk a bit about like some of our personal favourites, things that have annoyed us, the ways that cinema has wronged us in the last 12 months, but also like hot people and cool music, etc. in what I have unofficially dubbed on the notes the Cineskinny End of Year Roundup Awards, or the Ciras for short, named after famed actor Michael Cera.
Michael Cera. The Michael Ceras.
The Michael Ceras. Cinema's highest honour, the Michael Cera.
The golden Michael Cera.
It's his life size as well. Anyway, so we've just like had some thoughts about how to like talk about some of the things that maybe went round the edges of cinema this year. Maybe the best place to start, not typically, but fittingly for this, and it's only getting more fitting by the moment, what we've called the Chaotic Energy Award for the person in a film this year who has caused it the most. Who's nominated the person that's on the list?
That was me.
Okay. So the Cineskinny's pick for most chaotic energy of the year goes to
Barry Keoghan.
Barry Keoghan from the Banshees of Inisherin, which we discussed on the Films of 2022 episode that just went out. What exactly makes him so chaotic?
I mean, you could say, he'd probably be on the list every year. He just drops into films and, he just like unsettles you straight away. He's on a kind of different wavelength to everyone else, but he kind of just works perfectly. I felt the same with, what's the Dev Patel film from a few years ago?
The Green Knight.
Yeah, he's the same sort of energy in that film as well, where he's really kind of like
grubby,
almost kind of sinister, but also he's like a fool, but like a wise. He's very Shakespearean in a way. He's this kind of interesting, naive character that which also has sort of like dark undertones. I love watching him on screen. He's like great, and I love him in these kind of small roles. I can't actually think of him if I've seen him in a kind of leading man yet. Maybe he's just not made for that. Maybe he is better just coming in small doses and really kind of disrupting a movie. But yeah, he's great, and you're right, Annie. What you said in the last episode, he is the kind of emotional heart of the film. What happens to him in that film, not to spoil anything, is heartbreaking, and he manages to be both witty, weird, but sort of really human as well. Like there's something really human about his performance, I guess, is what I like about him.
He is the absolute king of being a third wheel. In Killing of a Sacred Deer, the Yorgos Lanthimos one, he is just absolutely terrifying. And the trailer that they have on Netflix when you accidentally hover over it when you're trying to pick what to watch on a Tuesday night is just Barry Keoghan scaring the shit out of Colin Farrell in the hospital. They're having like a conversation. Barry Keoghan's like, "You've been very nice to me. I'd like to do something nice for you." Barry, don't look directly at me. Any other picks for big chaos?
So I nominated Stephanie Sue from Everything Everywhere All at Once. Because she is like the girl that plays both Michelle Yeoh's daughter and then the kind of chaos energy Chopu Tabaki. I said that really badly. Hang on, I'm going to look up exactly how you say it. But anyway, she is so chaotic. I think especially because she plays that double role that you really have that like contrast between her being absolutely deranged and with, the bagel like vacuum like sucking everyone's like hopes and dreams into it, and with her like makeup that I really want to recreate when she has like, the heart-shaped thing on her cheeks like painted in lipstick and like glitter everywhere and like pink hair, and it's just so chaotic. Jobu Tabaki. Yeah, so I did get it right.
Yeah.
Award for me. But yeah, she's just very, very good. And the Golden Globe nominations came out yesterday. And I don't know why I continue to be disappointed by the Golden Globes, because you think I'd just learn. But they nominated Jamie Lee Curtis, who is like great, but like in a reliably great way. But the way that I don't think Stephanie Sue is getting like a look in at all, and like what she does is remarkable. Like it's chameleonic and it's so fucking deranged that she's great. So I would also say go her.
I would agree.
Yay.
Yeah. And moving on from that, maybe something else that's also thing about Everything Everywhere All at Once. There's so many little elements to it that you have to try and like pull out, and would really reward a repeat watch if you can like handle the intense barrage that it is. But another thing that I think is it Jamie's picked out, the Blast from the Past for a child star who's now good as an adult.
Yeah. This is one of my favourite stories of the year. It's Ki-Hoon Kwei is the actor who we probably remember as Short Round in the Temple of Doom film with Harrison Ford. Also, he was in The Goonies as well as Data. And, you know, I mean, again, this is actually going back to maybe John Peele's film that we talked about last time. You know, the reason he didn't continue in Hollywood is essentially racism. You know, there wasn't enough roles for Asian American men. So he is sort of basically retired for years, and now he's came back. And he's absolutely fantastic in this film. Again, he's playing dual roles. He plays the kind of nebbish dad who's like useless, but then he has this alter ego where he can take down 10 men with only a fanny pack, you know. So he's great.
The alternate universe where he has like they never got together, and he has glasses, and he's really sexy.
Oof.
Exactly.
My God.
Yeah.
He does it all.
He's got range. But also just like the story outside of the film, you know, him reconnecting with Harrison Ford, him sort of back on the interview trail and just being sort of really happy, positive guy. You know, there's so many terrible stories about child actors, how their life goes awry, you know, because of that business. But he seems to be like a very grounded guy. It didn't work back in the 80s. He went and had a normal life. And now he's back, and I would love to see him do other things, you know, because he is fantastic. He's just got it. He's like he's a movie star, you know. He's just like, he can do everything. So yeah, I loved seeing his kind of comeback. It made me really happy.
There is another person who could fit in that category that literally just occurred to me for child star who made a comeback. Owen Klein, who did Funny Pages that we talked about in the podcast, and I actually really liked that film. You didn't.
I mean, I thought it was all right,
but yeah. He was a child star and a director now.
Yeah. And I think that leads nicely into anyone who listens to this podcast regularly knows that one of my pet peeves is child or teenage actors who would not tire of a slap. But this year has been particularly good for youth performances that actually have range and are genuinely interesting. So I want to say best small child of 2022, I thought was Rayan Sarlacc from Pana Panahi's Hit the Road. Really fun wee guy with emotional range, not just like yuck, 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 laugh, 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 but also genuinely actually funny. And that is a really hard thing to do, because I think like young kids, the temptation is for them to be really overcoached and not naturalistic. And then teenage actors, the temptation is for them to want to be like, I'm a real guy now. I've been watching a bit of Desperate Housewives, and this has a lot of both.
Why?
Because Sally loves Desperate Housewives. I quite like it. It's weird. It's almost like kind of Twin Peaksy at times. It's honestly one of the strangest bits of television that has been made in recent years. But there's some child actors in that who are terrible, and then a teenager who drunk driving hit and runs an old lady and then goes and complains to his mum that he can't have his car taken off him because now he's got to ride his bike to school. And I was like, you're the worst prick going. You're genuinely awful. I hate you. But anyway, that's Desperate Housewives. But yeah, Rayan Sarlacc and Hit the Road. And I think, Lewis, you wanted to also talk about another good child actor in a year for...
your category was Best Small Child.
Yes.
And Anna Cobb is an actor who is, I think, no longer a teenager. I think since... The film is called We're All Going to the World's Fair, and it showed at Sundance in 2021, and it got released on Shudder this year. So I don't actually think Anna Cobb fits into this category anymore. I think that she's outgrown teenagerdom by now. But... I just wanted to use this as a backdoor to talk about a weird film that came out this year that doesn't really fit anywhere else. It's sort of a horror film that's inspired by like the mythology of like internet urban legends. And before you ask, no, it's not one of those like crappy unfriended films that's like all in one Skype window throughout the entire thing. Like, it's not some jump scare thing. It is about a sort of a viral internet challenge called the We're All Going to the World's Fair challenge, which seems to like is always cryptic. It seems to involve some kind of like self-hypnosis and role-playing elements with other players across the internet. And the film pretty much concerns Anna Cobb, who lives in one of these small, like, middle-of-nowhere towns in America, who gets really, like, sucked into this thing that we don't really understand what it is, you know, interacts with people over the internet that we learn are like grown men. And it's very much about like the way that innocence definitely dies when you grow up on the internet. But it's just a really weird film. It was produced by David Lowery, who did The Green Knight, who's the director of The Green Knight. So if you want to see a film that just like has quite unique imagery, it's not a very like high budget film. Like it creates this imagery with like glow in the dark paint and desiccated teddy bears, but really unsettling atmosphere throughout the entire thing is carried by Anna Cobb, who just gives this really good and layered performance. I thought this was a good place to bring that up because it's like not necessarily the best film of the year, but it's just weird and different.
And then was she also the little sister in Bones and All? Was
Yes,
that her?
yes, she was.
Yeah, and she's also good in that.
Yeah, because We're All Going to the World's Fair is one of those films that I saw on the kind of list of potentials for the pod that we never quite got around to. So I'm very glad that you brought it up just there.
It's, yeah, again, like I say, it's not like mind-blowingly good, but there's definitely like new and interesting stuff happening in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was We're All Going to the World's Fair for its small child, Anna Cobb, who is no longer a small child.
He's no longer a small child.
But she is in Bones and All. And Bones and All, that's a very awkward segue. We're not going to do that. I will edit this. We'll just segue from that to knitwear. Who had good threads this year?
I would like to make the argument for the Best Knitwear Award. Renate Reinsve in Worst Person in the World. That one scene where she's wearing that like white kind of cable knit, like cream, like, you know, the Chris Evans jumper.
Yes.
Like the fisherman's, what the fuck is it called? Like, you know, there's
Cable
really...
knit.
Yeah. Like those really cozy ones. And her hair's kind of like tucked in to the neck of it. And she's like standing by a bookshelf. And the vibes are excellent.
The thing about Worst Person in the World is it's like Scandinavian and like Nordic, but not very hygge.
Yes.
It's not a kind of like quaint twee or let's everything have wood burning fires in it. It's like, let's all get drunk all the time and hang around in buildings that are entirely made of pine and brushed concrete. Living our Scandi fantasy. Love to see it. Did someone else also want to shout out some knitwear?
Well, I wanted to shout out Colin Farrell, who is very dapper, I think. Is one thing that maybe isn't consistent with his character, because his character's meant to be a dope, like a real kind of like loser, but he dresses so niftily, I think. Like,
But it was like 1920 where you had to like put on a three-piece suit just to go down to the pub.
yeah, but he's really good at like card popping. He's got a
Yeah.
really nice, you know,
Because he's hot,
I
Jamie.
know he's hot, but that's also the tragedy. He doesn't have anyone because he's in this island with those like three people. You know, he can't get a date.
Brendan
But he's-
Gleeson has a very big hat, and it looks very cool, and I want that hat that Brendan Gleeson has.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good fashion film. Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more kind of 1920s fisherman style clothes.
I really liked the costuming in Nope. I think that
Oh
like
my God,
Kiki
yeah.
Palmer is always serving.
Mwah.
Oh, her
Stephen
tracksuits.
Yeun has this like UFO themed cowboy outfit that's very Marty McFly.
Yeah.
His hat really suits him as well.
Yeah.
Daniel Kaluuya's hoodie, which I know is not knitwear, but that bright orange hoodie.
The Scorpion
that
King.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, like her little jean cutoffs. I almost cut up my jeans after watching that film.
And if we're moving into leisure wear, I'd also say Letitia Wright and
Yeah.
and
Wakanda
Wakanda Forever.
Yeah.
The new
Yes.
Yeah. Is that when they're trying to go incognito and she turns up in the flashiest all
Yes.
like all matching black and purple Adidas tracksuit.
Yeah.
With enormous sunglasses on.
every time she's not in the Black Panther outfit, she looks amazing. Like her
Yeah.
costume is great.
Yeah.
Also, if we are now just talking about clothes, shout out to Bones and All costumier. Is that the word? Costumier?
Yeah.
It's a cool word. It should be.
I'm gonna say it's a word, but like the fits that Timmy wears in that film, like there's this one bit where he's wearing basically it looks like an 8-year-old's dress, but he's wearing it as like a top.
Yeah.
And then his very ripped jeans. My friend, so Shanlin, friend of the pod, and I went to see Bones and All again last week. And we got out of it at 11 p.m. and I immediately went and bought like 3 bottles of bleach and then bleached my jeans and tore them up. So inspired.
Yeah. I also really want his Thundercat t-shirt, which is really cool. Like that was my favourite issue as a kid. And he has a rope belt, which seems to work.
Yeah. You know? It's all just very, and her like little like floaty tea dresses.
It's like hobo chic.
So, it's very well done.
And if we're fully just talking about fashion, the crafts from Fire of Love with the beanies.
Ooh,
Yes.
With the Wes Anderson meets Jacques Cousteau, bottom of the sea, crossed with a kind of like medieval knight. when there's that shot of them, and one of them is wearing like an enormous like steel hood, and the other one is wearing like a blue short sleeve denim shirt and a red beanie hat that is somehow still on their head. I don't know how they've done it, but fair play. So yeah, if you want some fashion, if you want the Cineskinny lookbook from 2022, it's a varied but all excellently curated selection. So bash on. And that's probably as good a place as any to move on to sexiest moment in a film.
Hell yes.
So
Why am I the only one that's put down options?
I like my option.
Oh, is that your option? Okay.
No.
Okay.
Okay, Anahi, I feel it's only right to let you go first.
Oh my god, thanks so much. Okay, actually, I will start by saying I was like going through my letterbox, like every film that got released this year. It hasn't been the horniest year for cinema. I think there have been some very sexy films, but they're technically coming out next year. So some of the sexiest films I've seen don't like qualify.
Well, Ali, come on, can you give us some teasers? What are the sexy films?
So All the Beauty and the Bloodshed, I think is really, really hot, really sexy. What else? There are others that I now can't remember. No, that's okay. There were a couple. That's like the main one that really like comes to mind. I remember being like, this is so like, just like deeply horny. But yeah, that's not out yet. Oh, Blue Jean was another one that is very, very sexy, but I think is out in January, February, early next year. So yeah, it hasn't been the horniest year. But for me, there is this moment in the Batman where okay, so it's like the bit where I think he's like for some reason taking his shirt off because why not? And he's going through all of like the dusty files and he's like Bruce Wayne, which I think one of the really interesting things that film did was he was very, very rarely Bruce Wayne. And so then when he was, it felt so like, it felt like he was naked. Like it was so like vulnerable and like, it was really interesting. And so he's like sitting, going through his files and trying to like figure out shit. And he's sad because I think like Alfred just got blown up or something. And so there's just like, a sad man is very sexy. And he's like doing that. And then like Catwoman comes up on his screen because she's like using the like contact lens video like tech thing that he'd given her to like try and get back in touch with him. And it's like the first time that he sees her as Bruce and she obviously can't see him. And he just looks and he just thought that she'd like betrayed her. And it's just like really like the way that his eyes like flick up at her and he's just like so sad. But like really like vulnerable and really like it's like a moment where they connect and the only way he can have that is by being like truly invisible to her, like not even behind a mask but just not like present, and his like eyeliner's all like smudged around his eyes. Yeah, it was good. I would say that.
Right. Surveillance. Jamie, what do you...
But surveillance is horny. Like, sorry, voyeurism is horny. Hitchcock built like a whole fucking career.
Yeah,
around
no,
that.
you're right.
So,
You're right.
okay.
You're right. I defer to the master on the subject. Jamie, did you have anything that you wanted to talk about?
Well, I thought the sexiest film was probably Bones and All, but strangely not the central romance. So I've always thought that Luca Guadagnino is probably like our best kind of sensual filmmaker, or kind of, I guess, modern day sensual filmmaker. He's really great at kind of like just finding sensual moments. He films his actors beautifully. He makes them all look gorgeous on the screen. But I found it strange that actually I found the central romance a bit wet here. Like it just never kind of sparked for me. But where the film does have really quite erotic moments is strangely the cannibalistic elements. So there's a moment near the start where The girl, she's having a sleepover, and she just starts to nibble on her friend's hand. It's like erotic, you know, but it's obviously terrifying. And then later, I think the sexiest moment in the film is when Timmy seduces a guy at the carnival. So basically, Timmy just goes, he cruises this guy at the carnival, flirts with him, basically lures him to a cornfield. And you think, okay, he's just going to kill him. But he doesn't just kill him. He makes sure that this guy has a bit of pleasure before he dies. And that's dedication, you know. He died with a smile on his face, put it that way.
It's called commitment to the bit.
Yeah.
It's so hot.
Yeah, and then him and his girlfriend consume him as well. So it's like a really interesting choice. And considering that Guadagnino didn't film the sort of the straight romance at the centre in the same way, I just thought it was really interesting and sort of, yeah, really stood out to me.
It is such a gay film, and so many people have asked Luca about that, and he's been so like, why are you saying that? And it's just such a gay film. Like, I'm like, have you seen your own film? But he's been so like, no, like, it's just a film.
These are just
great.
actors.
Yeah.
There's no film in this camera.
I don't know if this will hit in the same way, but in Wendell and Wild, there's a giant leather daddy. That was weird. But like,
That
cool.
was, yeah. You know what?
Wait, hang
You
on.
laugh, but he's not wrong.
Which bit?
The devil, like the huge
Yeah.
devil that they like live on the
Yeah,
head
yeah.
of, is like a giant leather daddy, and like the finale of the film is like him coming to Earth and smashing everything up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I do like that they just sort of made a Henry Selick leather daddy.
Yeah.
Netflix's money going to good use
Truly, though.
for once. Maybe a good one to move on to next, as we use up this time we have in the studio, is I want to get everyone's most contrarian film opinions of 2022. Always fun to do this kind of thing. Cause some arguments. Have a bit of fun. Let's have a laugh with it. Lewis, do you want to go first?
Can I rant about the Northman?
You can.
Oh my
You
God,
can
yes,
have.
please.
You can have 3 minutes of uninterrupted rant, and then we'll have a discussion rant afterwards.
Okay, cool. So like the Northman from a directional standpoint was like fine, I guess. There's some good action scenes, so it makes like for a fine Viking war film. But this is the first Robert Eggers film where he didn't have the lead writing credit. That went to this Icelandic novelist called Sjón, I think I'm pronouncing that right. But even if it is this big spectacle, I still don't think it's to Eggers' strengths, because when you think of like, I just love The Witch. I love The Lighthouse. I think there are these like little isolated worlds that are just layered with so many themes and so, so claustrophobic. And there's moments like that in the Northman. There's like Willem Dafoe's weird ritual or Bjork's prophecy, and these are the highlights. But the rest of it is just like quite forgettable. Like Alexander Skarsgård just sort of flits about from battle to battle. He kills for honor and glory, and then he gets it. There's almost no subversion to this film. It doesn't have a deeper layer, except for like one thing, and I don't know, I don't really think this is that much of a spoiler, but like his motivation changes halfway through, where instead of saving his mother from his evil uncle, he learns that his mother is also evil, and she's just like, oh, I never loved you. I just love power. You're an idiot. And to prove it, I'm going to sleep with you. Like, it's just to disgust the audience. And then, Anya Taylor-Joy's character sort of helps drug these guards, but he hasn't had a problem killing guards up until now, so I don't really know what her point is, other than, there's a prophecy he's impregnated her, so because she's carrying the future king, she needs to be saved. It's just not a good film for women. It's just like the absolute male power fantasy that's like totally rewarded. It's like, I guess it would be fair not to like judge it by his previous work. Like, not every film in Eggers' filmography has to be this incredible screenplay thesis on masculinity and divinity. But like, I don't want him to do crappy commercial films. I don't want him just to do big action films. I want him to do his weird stuff.
It is fundamentally just a boring film.
Really boring, yeah.
Like,
I forgot so much of it.
Yeah, the issue with the Northman, and everyone's going insane over it, and like, for what?
I also
Why?
objected to the ending where they have the kind of naked fight on a mountain, like volcano. Like, why be coy? Like, this is a violent film where you've had people like being stabbed constantly. Then why, when it comes to the big fight at the end, is like there's just always luckily a bit of ash or a sword covering up the nether regions. Come on. The Vikings naked. Why make them naked in the first place if you're not going to show anything?
There's so many choices down the line in the creation of this film that like narrow the audience that it's for. You know, you could make it a bigger thing. You could have it speak to larger themes, but it's not. It's just for like bros to go and see Alexander Skarsgård cleave some dude's head in half.
But then I will say, so many of the people that like this film aren't bros. And it really did like appeal, which is like lovely. That's really nice. But I really was like, but why? Like, I didn't even think of it in a like, I was just like, but this is so boring. Like, it's so, like, who cares? Like, who cares? Who cares what these people are doing?
It's like the legend that inspired Hamlet. And for me, that means, like...
Just watch Hamlet.
Yeah, there's even
watch
more
The
of
Lion King. My God, there are options.
Watch that Simpsons episode. It's like there's even more of a reason to ask, like, what are you doing differently? What are you introducing to this mythos, you know?
Yeah. Like,
and there's nothing.
No. Like, it felt like, what are those fucking TV shows? Like Vikings and all of those other ones that are, like, you know, on Amazon Prime and look like they cost £10. Anyway, I didn't think it was good.
Me neither.
And you know what? Bang on time as well.
Were you timing him?
Well, I was just keeping an eye on the clock. And you know what? Nailed it. Jamie.
Well, I feel a bit daft saying this now because I really love all the performances, but I do think Everything Everywhere All at Once has been a little bit overrated. Just because I know. I don't know. It's a film that kind of wore me down. I feel like it's got one tone, and I would love to have seen it. Like my favorite scene in the whole film is when the two rocks start talking to each other, because it's instantly I had a break. I can breathe, because it's just, to me, a relentless film. And as much as I admire it, I admire all the performances, I admire the craft. I think to make a really engaging film, you have to have modulation. You have to go up and down. You can't just be one tone. And that's where it kind of fell down for me. It was just like relentless.
I don't agree with that, but I do think that not enough people talk about the rock scene. The rock scene is like the best. It's like so good.
It's the best scene.
It's like I didn't see it in a cinema, and I'm really mad that I didn't, because I bet that, like, no matter what, every cinema would have been dead silent. Everyone would have, like, stopped to read and take that moment in. It would have been like a really cool moment. I just love that it's like completely silent, and it's like films. That's a very daring move for a film to just have like a 5-minute silence right at its like emotional peak.
Did you see I'm trying to scroll through their Twitter, but it's just fucking Avatar interviews. But I think the Variety Actors on Actors interview that was like Colin Farrell and Jamie Lee Curtis. And he was talking about the rock scene and was like, yeah, and the way that you guys did it with like stop motion and animation, you just don't see that anymore. And she was like, no, Colin, it was 2 rocks.
But that's the thing, it's like so good. You totally anthropomorphize them. You know, it's just 2 rocks doing nothing. You imagine. Yeah, I think I did remember the rocks doing things, but they don't. They just sit there, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I saw it in a completely full cinema, and it was one of those ones when something is silent but with subtitles that everyone reads the subtitles at a slightly different speed. So you get this like ripple of like laughter around the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your contrarian opinion?
It was to ban all sequels. Ban all sequels, 3-year moratorium. You can only have new IP documentaries and weird indie films. Because I was saying this to Anahit, that I think one of the things that Disney Plus in particular have done is just make sequels to things that were already sorted, because they've moved away from the idea of like remaking and restarting entire franchises and just moved into like Hocus Pocus 2, Disenchanted, whatever Star Wars crap is going on. And like just do some new things would be my argument. My argument is, if you think you like franchises and sequels, you don't. You're wrong. I'm correct.
But then
Get rid of all of them. There's a contrarian opinion.
But then we wouldn't have Top Gun
That's
Maverick.
exactly what I said to
Well,
Peter
that was
yesterday.
the only issue that we had with this plan, was that Anahit wouldn't have Top Gun Maverick, which I believe you're going to see in 4DX later.
I am.
Wait, 4DX? Like, they get hit in the head with a volleyball?
Miles Teller actually appears before my eyes. In my defense, me and my friend made plans to see it, and this is the last day that we can see it because it's back in cinemas. But her mother arrives from the US tomorrow, so it has to be today, and they're only showing it in 4DX today. So we've made the sacrifice. So I will be leaving work an hour early today.
You really did try not to watch it in 4DX as well. You're rescheduling people's flights.
But we had this whole conversation, me and Peter, in the office yesterday, where I was like, oh, it's only, well, fuck that, I'm obviously not going. And it took, like, what, 7 minutes?
Yeah.
For me
You're
to
like,
be like,
well, you know what, I've booked my tickets. A few more quick ones before we're done. best beginning / ending of a film?
So best beginning, without a doubt, is Romain Gavras's Athena, which is on Netflix, which got so fucking like under the radar, which makes me so angry because it is really, really good. It is, you can literally just watch it on Netflix. It didn't get a proper cinema release, and it is one of the most cinematic films that's been made in so long. So it kind of is a Greek tragedy that takes place in like a banlieue in Paris after a kid is killed by the police, and his brothers, one of whom is in the military, one of whom is like this kind of dissident rising up. This kind of civil war almost breaks out in this banlieue. So it's like La Haine, but like taken to like whole new levels. And it begins with this 11-minute one shot of in the police station, and like a Molotov cocktail gets thrown. And then these kids are like going back to the banlieue, and like the French flag is like waving like in a Delacroix. Like it is fucking insane. It is insane. It is genuinely one of the best things that's ever been put on film ever. It is so, so good. And like the music is this kind of deeply operatic. Like he really wanted it to just be like heightened tragedy. It is so great. Oh my God. I love that film. And no one saw it. It made me really like sad because it was genuinely so good, and it should have got, and Netflix had just, Anyway, so that's the best beginning. Best ending, I think probably After Sun, we can all agree, but just like a shout out for Terence Davis's Benediction, which ends, I mean, this is obviously kind of spoilery, but also like, I mean, it's about Secret Sassoon, so we all know what happened. But it like ends with kind of this flashback to his younger self, played by Jack Lowden, sitting on the bench outside Costofen Hospital. Was that where the Craig Lockhart Hospital? Yeah, that's the one. And he's watching like a man who is like shell shocked, has had his like legs amputated in this kind of recovery hospital thing, and Ralph Vaughan Williams is playing over, which is just one of the most beautiful pieces of music ever, and Wilfred Owen's poem Disabled is being read out loud, and you just have this tight shot on Jack Lowden's face for like 3 or 4 minutes of him just sobbing, and it is absolutely fucking extraordinary. Like so good. And again, not many people saw that film. It was really good. They should have.
I think Benediction might also be on Netflix.
I think it is.
Yeah.
So if you just want a 2 emotional sucker punches, start of Athena, skip to the end of Benediction.
Yes.
It's not how they're supposed to be watched, but are there really any rules about this stuff? Yes, there are. Don't do that. The stealing the film in the third act. Jamie, do you want to talk about Triangle of Sadness, I believe?
Yes, Dolly de Leon. Just so great. Like that is like my favorite performance of the year. She's just like she just comes in, she takes over the movie. She's just so cool. I want to punch the air every time she was on screen. I love her, and I love, again, it's another actor who basically came from nowhere. I think she's done stuff back in her home country, but now she's like got an international acclaim. I really hope she gets some Oscar buzz, because she is like fantastic. She just like takes the movie by the neck, and I think I think we've discussed this before. I really love that third section. I think it really brings the whole film together, and part of it is because she's so good. So yeah.
Did we not discuss when we actually covered it on the podcast that she auditioned without an agent? That she's like totally just like...
Isn't that wild?
Yeah. And she's very good.
She's so great.
Triangles.
She got nominated for a Golden Globe yesterday. One of the
I'm
few
loving
things they did right.
And then the one final thing I think we should talk about, which is something I want to put on the plan mainly to try and excise a curse, but I will get onto my curse shortly. Strangest thing that happened to you in a cinema this year. Has anyone got any weird stories of things that have happened to them or that they have seen in the movie picture house in 2022? Annie's off the Top Gun 4DX, so consider this pre-planned. Jamie, anything particularly weird happened to you in a cinema this year?
I can't really think of anything, to be honest. Sorry.
I didn't have one. I guess, I mean, it didn't happen in a
Jamie's
cinema,
very
but like a
normal
weird, just a weird cinema thing is this Goncharov meme, the fictional Martin Scorsese film
That's
that the
so
internet made
funny.
up.
Oh my god.
And now like it's come full circle because Martin Scorsese has acknowledged it.
Yeah, his
daughter put it on
TikTok.
TikTok and obviously just got her dad to text, "Yes, I made Goncharov," and it has led to the very funny thought that like Martin Scorsese might say that Marvel movies aren't real movies, but Goncharov is. What about you, Peter? I
Uh,
feel like you're leading us somewhere.
Well, the thing I want to talk about is I have a friend who we very briefly were concerned was cursed, but exclusively when it came to cinemas. So we went and saw Matrix Revolutions at the start of 2022, and the film got to 20 minutes before the end, and the fire alarm went off, and we all got sent outside in the snow, I believe. So that was good. So then we were like, all right, that's weird. Shouldn't have happened. There you go. We all went to the pub and just like looked up what happened at the end of the film. And then several months later, same friend went to the St. James Centre Everyman to watch some other, I can't remember what the film was, but he went and was like, oh yeah, cinema was pretty nice. But then about 2/3 of the way through the film, the picture went off and the staff came through and said that part of the projector had melted. So we were all going to have to leave. And I was like, friend's name redacted. Are you actually cursed? And then we eventually had to get to a point where we all went to the cinema again and it was fine. But strangest thing that's happened to me this year in a cinema was being slightly concerned that my friend had a kind of hex over the various cinemas of Edinburgh.
Projecting like an electromagnetic field that
Yes.
like set
That
off
would
fire
explain
alarms.
so much.
We put him in
And
a
melted
Faraday
projectors.
cage and it was all fine. Just wheeling him around. Does anyone else have anything else that they would like to talk about and nominate for one of our extremely prestigious end of year roundup awards?
Cineskinny podcast, best film podcast of the year.
Yeah.
Yay.
I mean, that goes without saying. Anything else from you, Jamie?
No, I think that's it. I didn't have any more. I don't.
Good stuff. Anahi, anything you want to throw in at the end?
No, thank you.
Okay. Lewis?
Not in particular. Like we've just got a couple other things, but it's like Field of Dreams Award for making grown men cry.
Oh, sorry, that was mine.
But like, yeah, After Sun.
Yeah,
Totally.
obviously. After Sun, obviously.
If you can think of a category, just give it to After Sun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get those laurels on the posters, like 400 awards from this one podcast. And that's probably as good a point as any to finish the first year of the Cineskinny podcast. We did it.
We did
Look
it,
at
Joe.
us. My feet are getting quite cold, so I'm quite glad that we're going to be able to
It is quite cool.
leave the studio shortly. Thanks to Josh at Upload for having us. Thank you, Lewis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anahi.
Thank you.
The Cineskinny will be back in 2023. But in the meantime, everyone have a lovely...
No, but this is 2023 when this comes out.
I can't remember when this is coming out.
I think it's coming out
Okay.
2023.
Happy New Year.
Welcome to 2023. That's a good point to end on. Right, yeah, thanks for listening, and we will be back in a couple of weeks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.